In the Defendant's Chair is book 4 in the series. The Tablet of Destinies is book 5, and that one's already on YouTube. In the Defendant's Chair by Lynn, Yvonne. This book is dedicated to those wrongly accused. Prologue. The storm raged against the icy rain falling ruthlessly from the cold and dark clouds. Frozen pellets bounced off the windows as loud, howling cries of unforgiving wind echoed through the house. The small wooden frame vibrated with each angry gust. "It's going to be an ugly night," Alex commented, picking up the small child's jacket from the back of the sofa. He dropped the miniature item onto the coat rack and smiled at his wife, who stood at the kitchen door, arms folded against her chest. A loud bang exploded, and she jumped as an eerie chill ran up her spine. "What was that?" she asked. "Probably just a branch from an old tree," he replied, glancing out the window. "I'm sure I'll have a mess to clean up tomorrow." "Well, since it's nasty outside," Early said, taunting him with her swaying hips, "I'll get your fire going, if you start a real one. I'm going to check on the kids." He mumbled. "You have a deal." Early ran her fingers through her fine golden brown hair and grinned. There was nothing better than making love by a warm fire on a cold winter's night. The wind continued to howl with such force that the house trembled with each freezing wave. "I love winter," she thought, walking down the hallway. Early turned 27 a week ago, a young woman just entering her prime. It felt cozy as her bare feet hit the soft hallway carpet. She could only think of her anxiously awaiting husband in the other room. Early opened Darren's door first and prayed the child was asleep. Darren's a healthy, rambunctious 7-year-old who would rather have his teeth pulled than go to bed. As she approached him, Early had to laugh. Darren was on his back with his head on the floor and his butt and legs on the bed, sound asleep. "Oh my!" Early sighed as she lifted him back into his bed. She covered him and kissed his forehead. Before leaving, she whispered, "I love you, baby." After Darren, it was time to check on the twins, Nevada and Dakota, beautiful 3-year-olds that she devoted her life to. She tiptoed into their room and could not help but smile. As usual, they were not in their beds but curled up together on the floor between layers upon layers of blankets and pillows. "Well," she whispered with a twinkle in her eye, "I'm sure glad I bought those heavy-duty pajamas." Leaving them to their slumber, she closed their door. Early began to undress in the hallway. By the time she reached the living room, her bare skin tingled from the cool air. "Wonderful," Alex stated, not removing his eyes from his striking wife of 9 years. She swayed into his arms. After a long and wanting kiss, Early stepped back and unbuttoned his shirt. Alex handed her a glass of wine. As he took a small sip of his, she followed his moves and took several small drinks. He kissed her, sitting both glasses on the mantel. He touched and caressed her body, his fingers reaching every place he could find to excite her. They dropped to the floor, their legs entwined, each slowly becoming more part of the other as their thoughts and desires merged. Early slid down between Alex's legs, and his desires swelled. She engulfed his warmth with slow, rhythmic movement. She could tell he wanted to explode between her lips, but before he could reach his limit, Early withdrew and gazed up at him. She smiled, and he smiled back with a tear in his eye. "Tell me what you want, baby," he begged. "You want to ride?" Without responding, Early straddled his waist and slowly guided him into her. He reached up and fondled her firm breasts and excited nipples. As the movement of her thighs and hips increased, his fingers squeezed more firmly against her. She pulled him in deeper, rubbing her secret place against his as fast and hard as her hip muscles would allow. Early felt a sudden release of love and longing as she squeezed against his hardened love. Her back arched and she moaned. Alex was next. He exploded inside her as his hands gripped her hips in the heat of the excitement. He moved her back and forth until his strength was gone. She fell with exhaustion onto his chest and absorbed his love. The rise and fall of his breathing filled her with devotion. Early raised her head until their breaths met. As he exhaled, she inhaled. They were now one with each other. "I love you, Alex," Early whispered into his rising and lowering chest. Gasping for another breath, Alex whispered, "I love you, baby, and don't you ever forget it." They lay together as one until sleep engulfed them. Early slept peacefully next to her husband. She loved him more than life itself. There was nothing Early would not do for him. That night, Early dreams were peaceful and serene. She was happy with her life, the only life Early knew. Chapter 1, April 7th, 9:37 a.m. Early heard everything being said, but she couldn't understand a word. Her mind started spinning. Are they speaking English? Yes, she tells herself. They are, but the language is different, foreign. Sounds are echoing in my ears. Oh, the pain! The sound hurts. It must be the level of the noise that's confusing. Oh, my vision is blurred. I see nothing. Vagueness, haze. No, wait. The room is exactly as it's supposed to be, but where am I? Early reached up and rubbed the side of her face. She could hardly feel her hand against her skin. Am I dreaming? Yes, that must be it. What's the last thing I remember? Think, Early, think. Oh, yes, making love with Alex, but when did we go to bed? Early could not remember going to bed after making love that night. Perhaps Alex carried her into the bedroom. No, she wouldn't have slept through that. She's too light of a sleeper. Early heard a booming noise that startled her. "Objection!" the deep male voice echoed through her ears. Her stomach began to tighten. Then everything was dark again, peaceful and quiet. April 14th, 10:02 a.m. Early startled awake again to another booming voice. "Order! I demand order in my court!" Both attorneys approached the bench. "Now!" It's a man's voice, but it isn't Alex speaking, Early tells herself. What's voice is it? It sounds familiar. Perhaps the television. Did someone leave it on all night? What's wrong with me? My children, why haven't they asked for breakfast? Headache. Oh my God, how my head hurts. Pain envelops her, and then again a strange but peaceful quiet engulfs her, and everything fades far away into the distant darkness. May 21st, 2:21 p.m. Early's darkness yielded to light. Muffled noises became sharper. There's brightness all around me. It must be morning. Did Alex oversleep again? I really must get moving, or Darren will be late for school. I just hate to be rushed. My God, my head hurts. "Your Honor, please," a voice boomed, jarring Early from her private thoughts. "We all know how long this will take if we cannot get through at least one question without this constant interruption." I'm not dreaming, Early thought. That is real. Early glanced down and saw her hands. They were shaking. She was not in her bed. She wasn't in her house. Where am I? Glancing around as best she could, Early realized it was not her television making the loud noise. The sound was coming from all around, front, back, and from her sides. The tip of her fingers tingled. She frantically rubbed them together, desperate to stop the strange crawling sensation running up her arms. She reached out for her warm blankets. Early needed to feel safe and secure, but her blankets were not there. She had to be dreaming. She had to be. The room began to spin, and a gnawing sensation nagged deep within her jaws. Floating and twirling around the room, Early felt confused and sick. This had to be a dream. There could be no other explanation. She reached out again for her bed covers, but felt something hard instead of soft. The dresser? Am I touching my dresser? What's it doing way over here? The more she groped around at her surroundings, the more she realized she was not in bed. She was confused, and it terrorized her, sickening her even more. She couldn't think. Her hands reached up to scratch her head, but instead she pressed her palms against her eyes to try to stop the wild spinning, the noise, muffled words, shuffling shoes. "Stop! Please stop!" "I'm sitting in a chair. Get a hold of yourself, Early." Hard wooden arms hugged her. But Early doesn't own any chairs with wooden arms. I meant a chair, a real hard chair. Fear was rising from deep within and spreading throughout her veins, attacking the farthest point of her sanity. Your Honor, that wasn't a question, a voice huffed. It's clear he's leading the witness. I object. Early exhaled a deep breath slowly. After blinking several times, her eyes began to focus. She skimmed the room for something familiar, anything. She had never seen this room before, but how could that possibly be? No, something is terribly wrong. A wooden table is in front of me. It's not my kitchen table. Next to her sat a man in a dark suit wearing a bright red tie, arguing with the man standing in the middle of the courtroom. Early screamed. Gradually the voices around her rose to the level of complete chaos before the judge slammed his gavel against his desk and commanded, "Order! Order in my court! Bailiff!" She spoke. Someone sitting behind Early shrieked. The man sitting next to Early grabbed her arm. "My God," he whispered. "Early, can you hear me?" "What's going on? Where am I?" Early cried. "Who are you? Where am I?" Early jerked her arm and backed as far away as she could. The bailiff hurried toward them. Early's fear was growing faster than her mind could comprehend. "What's happening?" she screamed. "My God," the stranger repeated. "Order! I demand order!" the judge yelled as the other voices continued to get louder. The people behind her were moving about and talking out of sync with each other. The confusion and disorder was growing as every second passed. The judge sat stunned, trying to compose himself and bring calm to the chaos. The woman, the defendant, who had been silent for the last several months, was suddenly talking. The crazy, evil, and comatose woman who slashed her children into tiny, unrecognizable pieces while they slept, and who stabbed her husband over 100 times, was suddenly awake and speaking. Early grabbed her ears and screamed for her husband to help her. "Alex! Alex, where are you?" In the Defendant's Chair, an agency book. This is book 4 in the series. The first 3 books, which were not published by Indigner House, and we may eventually pull them over, I will read them in their entirety and place them on here for everyone to be able to enjoy. However, if you're interested in getting the first 3 novels, and they do not need to be read in any particular order, you just simply go to Amazon.com and type in Lynn, Yvonne, Moon, my full name, and all of the books will pop up, or you can go to my personal website at lynnyvonnemoon.com, or you can go to the Indigner House website, and we have them posted there as well in case anybody would like to see them. And as always, if you want an autographed copy, just let us know and we'll get one out to you. Everyone have a great evening.